So you want to ride a motorcycle. Okay, well here you go. Here's your tips. Buy a Japanese motorcycle. Hey guys, this is going to be a guide on how to get your first motorcycle if you're in the market. If you don't have a lot of experience with motorcycles and you want to get on the road with a reliable bike at a reasonable price. Now this here is my 2007 Yamaha FZ6. I've had it for 7 years and it has over 40,000 miles on it now. So that's the reason I say buy Japanese. They've been the most reliable manufacturers for a long period of time and continue to be so. So if price isn't important to you, then you can click away from this video and you can do whatever you want. This is just going to be a quick video on my thoughts on, hey, I'm looking to get a motorcycle. I've been interested in it and I want to get something that's reliable and something that's relatively cheap. So this is what I would do. Again, if you have different opinions on that, that's fine. This is just my thoughts on the matter. Now this is the reason one. This is a 14-year-old motorcycle now, 40,000 miles, 40,370 to be exact, and there you go, starts right up. So there's 4 manufacturers you should focus on. That's going to be Honda, Yamaha, Suzuki, Kawasaki. And what I would do if I were you is, again, I'm assuming that you have some experience riding a motorcycle. If you've never ridden a motorcycle, you're probably going to have to take the Motorcycle Safety Foundation class, or try to get some experience maybe on a dirt bike. If you have a friend that has a dirt bike, that's going to be good help, because you don't want to just buy a motorcycle without ever having ridden one. So there's that piece of it. But let's say you have some experience, or you rode a dirt bike growing up and you kind of know how to ride one, and you have an endorsement maybe. Go to Craigslist, go to Facebook, put in your price parameters, like $900 as a lower end. On the upper end, you're going to want to put $2,000 to $2,500. And just type in the bar, or type in motorcycle. That's all you have to type in. And you'll be surprised how many things pop up. I mean, if you're not so picky on what you're looking for, you're going to see motorcycles from the 80s, from the 90s, from the 2000s. Even something as recent as 2010 or 2012, 13 could show up there. The CC range that you're going to be looking for is anywhere from 450 to about 750. I wouldn't waste your time on a Ninja 250, Ninja 300, R3. I think they're just not enough bike for a new rider. Most people that ride those, they complain after a month or two that it's just not enough bike, and they've gotten, it's just not enough power, and they've gotten used to it. So I'm a fan of buying something that maybe is a little more than you should be on, but you can grow into it. The bike that I'm on is a perfect example. This bike is never going to be dangerous unless you're the one that is revving it incredibly high and trying to go insanely fast. So you got to have some amount of self-control. But if you do, you can ride pretty much anything. Even 1,000 or a Hayabusa or something. If you really respect the bike, it's never going to be a problem. You can just stay low in the rev range. But what I'm going to recommend, I'll give you some quick shots on kind of the bikes from each manufacturer that I know are reliable and that have a good community of excuse me, that have a good community of support. At this day and age, pretty much every bike has some amount of community. But if you started out with Honda, you're going to want to look at a Honda Shadow 600, Honda Shadow 1100. That's kind of the cruiser bike they have with Honda. Those have been around for 20-30 years, maybe longer, and are reliable. They also have a Honda Nighthawk from like the 80s and 90s, or any of the Honda CB. I don't know exactly what they're called. I think they're just called the CB, but CB 450, I think there's a CB 550, 650, 750, I think there might even be an 850. Some of them are 2-cylinder, like the 450 and the, I think the 450 is a 2-cylinder Nighthawk, but the rest of them are those 4-cylinder Honda motors. They're very reliable bikes. And you can get one of those for $1,000, if you look long enough, $1,000 to $1,500. Honda also has the Honda Hornet. That's a very good bike. It's similar to this bike. They have two variations of it, the Honda 599 and the Honda 919 Hornet. That's a good bike. They're not as popular as the CBs are, obviously, but if you find a good one from like 2005 or something for 2,500 bucks, that might be a good buy. Let's see what else for Honda. That's pretty much the main ones I know for Honda. They obviously have a lot of bikes, and they're probably the most well-known. They're the biggest manufacturer of motorcycles, I believe, in the world. But any Honda that's around that size is going to be a good bike. I'm not as familiar with all the newer bikes because I don't really pay attention, because I'm never looking for a new bike. They're overpriced, and there's so many used bikes out there that just haven't been ridden that much, where I think I would never buy a new bike even if I had the money. But that's Honda. If you go to Suzuki next, Suzuki, they have the SV650, which is probably one of the best starter bikes out there. It's a 2-cylinder bike, so you're going to have a little more torque on the lower end, but huge community for that bike. And I see bikes for sale all the time that are SV650s, and a lot of them have higher miles. So, they're reliable, they last a long time, and they're pretty much bulletproof. So that's Suzuki. They also have the Suzuki Marauder and the Suzuki Intruder, which are more of a chopper cruiser style, and the Suzuki Savage. I think that's a bike that's been around for 30 plus years, and they pretty much haven't changed the design. It's just that cruiser style with a 650 single cylinder. And if you're looking for something really cheap, you could probably get one of those for less than $1,000 that's 15 years old if you look long enough. They're not complicated. The design doesn't look like it's changed at all from like 1989 or whatever it came out. Also, a good one is the Suzuki Bandit. Very cheap, reliable. They have the Suzuki Bandit 600 and I think the 1200 or the 1250. But you can get one of those that's 15 years old for maybe $2,000 or less. And they're reliable bikes. I see on the forums people have 100,000, close to 100,000, no problems really. Any Japanese motorcycle, that's why I started this video. If you want to buy a bike that's not only reliable, but you don't have $10,000 just throw at it, go to Craigslist, Facebook, and do what I said, and you'll see all sorts of different bikes. And don't be too picky about the style of the bike. Again, unless you are a picky person, be open to any type of bike and just look for the best deal. It doesn't have to be your bike forever, but you might learn that you really like the bike and want to keep it. If we go on to I'll do Yamaha next. The bike that I'm on is obviously a highly recommended bike. I've had it for 7 years. It's the FZ6. I have lots of videos lots of me just talking to myself on this bike, with other videos I've made throughout the years. It's never really let me down. It's a 4-cylinder, easy to maintain, doesn't have the fairings, and you can really grow into the bike. You can do riding like I'm doing now, around 4,000 to 6,000 RPM. You're never going to get in trouble, and it'll go all day. So this is a great option. You can get one you should be able to get one for about 2,500 bucks, maybe even less. Cash is king nowadays, or it always has been. So you should be able to get one for $2,000. That's 12 to 15 years old. Yamaha also has a great cruiser line, the V-Star 650 and the 1100. Some of those are 15 to 20 years old, but very reliable. I see ones that have 40, 50,000, on the forums. I see ones that have 100,000. Very low cost of ownership, reliable motorcycle. That would be a great first bike for someone, a really great first bike that you could really do a lot of miles on that bike, if you wanted to. Not only could you learn it and kind of ride it around town, but those bikes are going to be capable of doing 500-mile days with no issues really, because they're just that reliable. Yamaha also has an older version of like this bike. I think it's called the Yamaha Thundercat, but it's just more of a standard type bike. I don't think I said in this video, but I would not personally, you know, if you're like a 20-year-old guy or 30-year-old guy and you're like, man, I just really want an R1 or a GSXR 1000 or a CBR 1000 or a Hayabusa or something, not only are those going to be more expensive, but they're not comfortable at all, and they're way more power than you're ever going to need. So I wouldn't even want to ride one of those right now, and I've been riding motorcycles for over 10 years, and I've been riding them on the road for about 9 years, or 8 or 9 years now. So I would never recommend anyone to buy a 1000. I think you're just asking to get in trouble, and 95% of people that ride one of those, I don't think they have enough discipline to never get in trouble on it. You know, remember, even if you're going 90 or 95 on the freeway and you don't feel like you're going that fast, that could be cause for you to get pulled over and get a ticket, and you're really not even using the bike. I mean, you're just kind of going through, you know, casually through the gears, and you're already going like close to triple digits. So that's just a recipe for, I think, a bad day for you. And then I'll end it with Kawasaki. So Kawasaki has the 650R, which is a two-cylinder bike. Again, I see lots of examples of that particular bike that have 30, 40, 50,000 plus miles on it. You can find one that's 12 to 15 years old for $1,500 to $3,000, and you know, I wouldn't pay more than about $2,000 for one. $2,500 if it has like kind of really low miles and looks good condition, but very reliable bike. They also have a bike called the ZZR 600. I see those occasionally. It's similar to the FZ6. It's not the full-fledged race bike, but you know, you have that engine in there that's the 4-cylinder reliable Kawasaki engine, and it's a bike I think you could learn on and really grow into. It's a bike that you'd be comfortable riding for many years because it does have enough power once you get experienced. Kawasaki also has the Vulcan. So the Kawasaki Vulcan is their whole lineup of cruisers. They've been making those for, you know, 30 years probably, or even longer. I think there's some from the 80s. Those are pretty cheap bikes. You can find one for, again, $1,500 to $2,500 probably. That's anywhere from 10 to 25 years old, and those are going to be reliable. I would personally choose, if you're new, I would try to get a fuel injected bike. Fuel injected bikes are probably going to be around the year like 2003 or 4 or 5. If you can't though, that's fine, because remember, you're still on a Japanese bike, so as long as it's been ridden regularly, you're not going to have too many problems with the carburetor or with the carburetors. So that's kind of my take on it. Let me know what you guys think. Obviously those are just a handful of bikes. There's a lot more out there. Kawasaki has the Versys and the whole, you know, there's a lot of different bikes out there that are newer. I don't really keep up to date on all the new bikes from the last 5 or 10 years because they're really not bikes that I'm looking at. Let me know what you guys think though. I think that's good advice for someone that's looking, you know, for just a bike to start on that they could actually log serious miles on, and that's reliable. You know, you're going to want to stay with the Japanese bikes, in my opinion, but that is just my opinion. So if you guys like the video, you know, go ahead and subscribe. Definitely appreciate it if you do. I think it's cool to see that people are watching the videos, and let me know what your thoughts are on the subject, and as always, have a good day and ride safe.